The galaxy was vast, endless, and filled with splendor. Across its countless star systems stretched empires of unimaginable scale, iron-fisted reptilian dynasties, crystalline monarchies, hive minds older than suns, and mechanical overlords, who thought themselves gods. In this vastness, power was everything, and in that very galaxy, seated upon the golden throne of the Lyran dynasty, lived Princess Celira. Unlike the towering warriors and glittering rulers that made up the courts of the galaxy, Celira was small. Her body was delicate, her frame no larger than that of a human child, with silken silver skin and luminous blue eyes that seemed too soft for the cruel galaxy around her. Where other royal heirs could shatter steel with their claws or command armies with the weight of their presence, Celira's voice trembled in council meetings. Her stature, her gentleness, her very existence seemed out of place in a universe that worshipped strength. Her father, the Emperor, had hoped to secure alliances by offering her hand in marriage. To the galaxy, marriage was not love. It was a weapon, a way to fuse dynasties, share fleets, and build power. But when the suitors came, they did not stay. The reptilian warlords of Crag laughed openly at her fragility. The crystalline monarchs of Helion dismissed her, saying her body lacked the angles of power. Even the cybernetic rulers of the Vare Collective declared her an unworthy vessel for progeny, each rejection carved deeper into her heart. Every refusal echoed through the great halls, turning whispers into rumors and rumors into scorn. To the galaxy, Princess Celira was no more than a fragile ornament, unsuited for alliance, too weak for rule, and destined to be forgotten. Years passed, and the list of rejections grew longer. By the time she reached her 20th solar cycle, not a single alien male in the galaxy desired her hand, and then came the humans. Humanity was young compared to the elder empires. Their fleets were small, their colonies scattered, and their technology barely holding against the crushing strength of ancient civilizations. Yet they were stubborn enough to survive on death worlds, stubborn enough to face extinction and claw their way back. And though the galaxy mocked them, whispered of their recklessness, there was something in humanity no alien could explain, a fire that did not yield. It was during a grand diplomatic gathering, held in the crystal halls of Lyris Prime, that a human starship arrived. Not a fleet, not a royal envoy, just a single ship, scarred from battles and worn from long travel. Its commander was Captain Adrian Holt. He was not tall compared to most aliens, nor clad in jeweled armor. His uniform bore the marks of a working soldier, creases, repairs, and the faint scent of ozone from too many battlefield deployments. His face was hardened by war, his eyes steady, his posture unbending. He was not there to beg favor. He was there as a representative of humanity, a mere observer in a hall of giants. Celira noticed him immediately, not because he stood out, but because he didn't. He was calm in a place where others boasted, respectful where others sneered. When her name was called and laughter followed, she saw him remain silent. His gaze did not hold mockery, only curiosity. Later that night, when the council dispersed, Celira found herself wandering the garden domes, hidden beneath the glow of bioluminescent flowers. There she found Captain Holt standing alone, staring at the stars as if they were old friends. "You didn't laugh," she whispered. He turned to her, surprised at first, then softened. "Why would I?" "They all do," she said, her voice fragile. "Every suitor, every ruler. To them, I am nothing." Holt studied her, not with the eyes of a conqueror, but of a man who had seen too much war. "To me," he said, "you're someone brave enough to stand in that hall every day, even when the galaxy mocks you. That doesn't sound like nothing." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not as a symbol, not as a disappointment, but as a person. In the days that followed, Salira found excuses to seek him out. He told her stories of Earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of forests alive, with voices of storms that could tear cities apart, yet left humanity standing. She listened, enraptured, to tales of ordinary people who fought not for power but for survival, for family, for hope, and in return, she told him of her loneliness, of halls filled with jewels and gold that meant nothing when one's heart was empty, of a crown that weighed heavier than any chain. Where others saw weakness, Adrian saw resilience. Where others saw fragility, he saw grace. And slowly, word spread through the palace that the unwanted princess was often seen walking alongside the human captain. Whispers turned to scandal. The galaxy roared in outrage. How could a princess rejected by kings and emperors choose a human, a captain with no empire, no throne, no dynasty? But when confronted, Salira stood tall, her voice carrying strength no one thought she possessed. "You who mock me," she declared before the council, "were blind. You looked upon me and saw weakness. But this man saw me. Not my crown, not my bloodline. Me. That is worth more than all your fleets and empires." Captain Holt bowed his head beside her, silent but unyielding. And in that moment, something shifted. The galaxy, which had rejected her, now trembled at her defiance. For the first time, the tiny alien princess was no longer a pawn in political games. She was a ruler who had chosen her own path. The bond between Princess Salira and Captain Adrian Holt became a story whispered across the stars, a fragile princess who found her strength in the most unlikely of places, not in the arms of alien warlords, but in the heart of a human who saw her as more than her weakness. And in the endless night of the galaxy, two souls, one fragile, one scarred, found light in each other. Because sometimes love is not forged in power. Sometimes it is found in the quiet courage of acceptance. The galaxy was a stage of endless bargains. Empires rose not by war alone, but by marriage, by treaties sealed in blood and vows. For the Lyran Empire, its hope of survival rested on the smallest of shoulders, the fragile frame of Princess Salira. Her father, the Emperor, had built fleets of fire, but even fleets burn out. Enemies pressed on every border, allies turned cold, and whispers in the Senate grew louder. The Lyrans were weakening. To save their future, the Emperor sought a match that would bind another power to their side. But there was a problem. His only daughter, Salira, was unlike any other heir. She was tiny, delicate, and soft-spoken, her voice carrying none of the thunder of her father's command. Among the towering races of the galaxy, scaled reptilians, crystalline sovereigns, winged titans, her presence seemed fragile. Suitors came, yes, but when they saw her, when they measured her against their vision of power, they refused. One by one, world by world, dynasty after dynasty. The humiliation grew. News spread across the stars. The Lyran princess is too weak to be worth marrying. For Salira, each rejection was a dagger. She was not foolish. She knew she was a pawn in her father's plans, but pawns can feel pain too. She spent nights in her chamber gazing at the stars, wondering if she was truly as worthless as the galaxy believed. Finally, the council grew, desperate. With no suitor among the elder powers, they turned their eyes to a race the galaxy barely regarded. Humans. Humanity was young, restless, and scattered. They had no ancient thrones, no dynasties stretching back millennia. Their fleets were small, their colonies few. Yet, they had survived where others would not. They had colonized death worlds, carved homes on frozen moons, and fought wars with a ferocity that frightened even seasoned empires. The council scoffed when the idea was raised. A Lyran princess tied to a human? Absurd. But absurdity, in desperation, becomes possibility, and so an offer was quietly extended to the Terran Confederacy. A marriage bond, political in nature, between the Lyran princess and a representative of Earth's fleet. No one expected them to answer, but they did. When the grand gathering came, filled with rulers, kings, and warlords, the human ship arrived late. It was not golden or magnificent. It bore no jeweled banners, no armies of slaves. Instead, it was scarred, a working warship, carrying the grit of a species that fought for survival. Its commander was Captain Adrian Holt. He was not a prince, not a king, not even an admiral. Merely a captain with lines of war etched into his face and a posture that spoke of battles fought, friends lost, and victories paid for in blood. The court laughed when he stepped forward. This is the suitor for the Lyran princess? A man, with no crown, no dynasty? But Holt did not flinch. He bowed only slightly, just enough to be respectful, not enough to grovel. And when his eyes met Celira's, something passed between them. He did not look at her as others did, not with disdain, not with calculation, simply as a person. The bargain was struck. The galaxy mocked it. To them, this was the final humiliation. The princess no alien male wanted was now handed to a human captain, a man of no rank in the grand hierarchy of stars. But what began as a political convenience soon became something else. At first, their meetings were formal. Adrian Holt spoke plainly, never drowning his words in flowery titles. He told her stories of Earth, not the glories of conquest, but of oceans that roared against the shore, of forests alive with whispers, of storms that could tear down cities, yet leave humanity standing. Celira listened, spellbound. No alien suitor had ever spoken to her this way. They boasted of fleets, of armies, of power. Holt spoke of resilience, of endurance, of ordinary people with extraordinary courage. And in return, she confessed her own fears, that she was too small, too weak, that she had been rejected so many times she no longer believed she was worth anything. Adrian looked at her then, long and steady, and said words she would never forget. Where I come from, princess, survival is strength. And anyone who has endured the mockery of the galaxy this long without breaking is stronger than any warlord I've met. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. The bargain no longer felt like a bargain. It became companionship. She began to walk beside him in the gardens, to sit with him during council, to laugh softly at his strange human humor, and he, scarred by war and weary of politics, found comfort in her gentleness. The galaxy, however, did not approve. Rumors spread faster than light. The fragile princess and the human captain, mockery, scandal, disbelief. Alien rulers spat venom. They accused the Lyrans of weakness, of desperation, of tainting their bloodline with humans. But when the council tried to shame her into silence, Celira stood before them and raised her voice, clear, firm, and unshaken. You call this a bargain of desperation, she said, but you are blind. I was offered to kings who wanted power, to rulers who wanted fleets, to warlords who wanted a pawn. None wanted me. Only this man did. And if you think that makes me weak, then perhaps it is you who do not understand strength. Adrian stood beside her, silent, but his presence was enough. The chamber went still. For the first time, the tiny princess, who had been dismissed by every suitor, showed the galaxy that she could choose her own fate. Their union was sealed, not in jewels and crowns, but in vows spoken quietly beneath the stars. She was no longer the unwanted princess. She was the partner of a man who valued her heart over her throne, and together they forged an alliance stronger than any political bargain. Because what began as a desperate agreement became something no empire could control, a bond of loyalty, a bond of respect, a bond of love, and in time, the galaxy that once mocked them would learn that even the smallest princess and the most ordinary human could change the stars. In the gilded halls of the Lyran Empire, beauty gleamed brighter than the stars. The throne of Emperor Kyle stood as a beacon of power, surrounded by glittering fleets and allies sworn through ancient pacts. But power is fragile when it rests on the shoulders of the unwanted. That unwanted was Princess Salyra. She was small, delicate, and unlike the rulers of other empires. Her frame was fragile, her voice soft, her presence overshadowed by the grandeur of those around her. For years, her father had offered her hand in marriage, hoping to secure allies. But one by one, suitors from across the galaxy rejected her. The reptilian warlords mocked her frail size. The crystalline monarchs called her too dull a gem. The machine lords of the Vare Collective labeled her a faulty construct of flesh. Every alien male in the galaxy turned away. To them, she was weak. To them, she was nothing. But weakness has a way of being tested, and fate was waiting. The border wars came without warning. A coalition of predators, long circling the Lyran Empire, finally struck. They believed the Lyrans vulnerable, their throne fragile, their empire fractured by shame. Fleets swept across the outer systems, burning colonies, enslaving civilians, and cutting deep into imperial space. The suitors who once sought her hand, they turned their fleets away. No one came to help. Not one empire risked its strength for the fragile princess or her father's throne. Abandoned, cornered, and desperate, the empire prepared to surrender. And then came him. A single human warship, battered and scarred from past battles, emerged from hyperspace. Its commander, Captain Adrian Holt. He was no prince, no emperor, not even a man of high rank in galactic terms, just a human captain, an outsider, who had once stood quietly in the Lyran courts while others mocked Salyra, the one who had not laughed when her name was scorned, the one who had seen something others did not. He came not with promises of conquest or demands of tribute, but with words that cut deeper than any blade. "You're not alone. Not while I still draw breath." The court was outraged. A single human ship against an invasion fleet? Madness. But Adrian Holt did not flinch. He spoke to Salyra directly, his voice steady, as if the chaos of war could not touch him. "Princess," he said, "your people don't need another empire's pity. They need a leader who will fight, even when no one else believes. Let me stand with you. Show them who you truly are." Something stirred in her then. For years, she had been told she was too small, too weak, too unworthy. But this human, this outsider, looked at her as if she carried the strength of 1,000 stars. And so when the council urged surrender, Salyra rose. Her voice, once trembling, rang across the chamber. "No, we will not surrender. We will fight. And if the galaxy believes me too weak, then let the galaxy watch as I prove them wrong." Her words struck like fire. Soldiers who had lost hope straightened their backs. Civilians who prepared for chains lifted their eyes. And at her side stood Adrian Holt, the only one who had believed from the beginning. The war that followed was not fought with overwhelming numbers. It was fought with courage, cunning, and defiance. Holt commanded daring strikes, leading his small ship through enemy lines, crippling supply routes, and teaching the Lyran fleet tactics the galaxy had never seen. Guerrilla warfare, precision, ambushes, lightning raids. He turned weakness into strength, and Salyra became more than anyone imagined. She took command beside him, learning strategy, rallying troops, speaking not as a fragile princess, but as a commander whose words lit fires in broken hearts. Where once she had been mocked for trembling, now her voice carried across battlefields as a call to stand. "The galaxy called me nothing," she told her soldiers, "but today I fight for everything, for our homes, for our people, for every child who deserves a future." The troops roared her name. Battle by battle, system by system, the tide began to turn. The predators who thought the Lyrans broken soon discovered they faced something far more dangerous, a princess who refused to yield, and a human captain who fought like no other. The final battle came over the skies of Lyris Prime itself. Enemy dreadnoughts darkened the stars, their weapons ready to annihilate the capital. The Lyran fleet, battered and bloodied, stood as a thin shield against annihilation. In the command chamber, council members urged retreat, urged surrender. But Celera looked to Holt. His steady eyes met hers, and no words were needed. She stepped forward, her voice clear. "Today, we do not run. Today, we do not surrender. Today, we fight, not because they believe us strong, but because we know that even the smallest flame can burn the darkest night." Her words lit the fleet like wildfire, and then Holt gave the order. The human ship dove into the heart of the enemy line, drawing fire, weaving through impossible odds. Lyran ships followed, striking in perfect synchronization. Explosions tore through dreadnought hulls, shields collapsed, and the predators who once mocked the fragile princess realized too late that they faced a leader forged by rejection and strengthened by defiance. When the last enemy vessel fell in flames, the stars above Lyris Prime blazed with victory. The galaxy watched in silence. The same rulers who once turned away now whispered her name in fear and awe. Princess Celera, once dismissed as too small, too weak, had stood with a human captain and broken an invasion that should have crushed her empire. She had proved them all wrong. When peace returned, the council asked how she wished history to remember her. She answered simply, "Not as the unwanted princess, not as a pawn in galactic games. Remember me as the one who fought when no one else believed I could." And beside her stood Adrian Holt, not as a suitor, not as a political pawn, but as the man who had seen her strength before anyone else did. Together, they became a legend, not because of crowns or thrones, but because in the darkest hour, a fragile princess and a human captain defied the galaxy itself, and won.